My family dismissed me for not fitting into their perfect little box. Years later, I'm successful, wealthy, and living on my own terms. When they came crawling back, asking for help, I gave them an answer that exposed all their lies and shattered the fantasy they built. I am a 27-year-old woman, still grappling with the entirety of it. I grew up in one of those quintessential Ohio suburbs, where every lawn is impeccably maintained and a Target store is precisely 7 minutes away. You know the kind of place where the most thrilling event is when someone dares to paint their front door a provocative color. My father is an insurance agent, picture khakis and predictable jokes, but with an underlying edge. My mother teaches English at the local high school, which was a unique experience when she was actually my teacher, but we'll get to that horror show later. Then there's my sister, Katie, a 29-year-old woman who might as well have been a carbon copy from a Pantene commercial. I'm talking naturally blonde hair that genuinely bounces, vivid green eyes, a flawlessly sloped nose, the complete package. Meanwhile, I inherited, well, everything else. Allow me to paint a picture of my younger self. Frizzy brown hair that resembled a static shock, thanks to Ohio humidity. My father's prominent eyebrows, plural, but almost forming one. My mother's round face, only rounder, and a body type that led my pediatrician to tick the husky box on my school forms. Yes, that was actually a thing in the early 2000s. Imagine being 8 and discovering your body type is husky. The teasing started early, truly early. My first distinct memory of realizing I was the unattractive one was at Katie's 7th birthday party, making me 5. Mom had dressed us in identical outfits, her initial misstep. While taking pictures, she kept trying to adjust me. Honey, suck in your cheeks a little. No, that's worse. Maybe just stand behind your sister. That became her default solution for every family photograph for the next 2 decades. Just conceal the less appealing child. Dad's cruelty was of a different variety. He considered himself hilarious with his incessant jokes. His favorite was introducing us to his work colleagues as my daughter Katie and my linebacker. He would literally pause for laughter, and people did laugh, because what else do you do when someone is mocking their own child? I can still hear him remarking, "At least we know she'll save us money on prom dresses." Joke's on you, Dad. I still went to prom alone in a dress from Walmart, but I went. Mom's brand of torment was more helpful. She initiated diets for me when I was 9. Not like, hey, maybe eat more vegetables diets, but full-blown Weight Watchers meetings where I was literally the only child. She'd pack Katie's lunch with typical kid fare, sandwiches, chips, those peculiar hostess cakes everyone coveted. For me, it was celery sticks and low-fat cheese, because apparently childhood obesity was a greater concern than, I don't know, instilling an eating disorder in your child. But the worst part wasn't even the direct criticisms. It was the incessant comparison to Katie. Everything became a competition that I was somehow losing before it even began. Katie would come home with a B+ and receive commendation for her effort. During cheer season, I'd get an A in a tough class, and the response would be, well, if you weren't always in your room on that computer, maybe it could have been an A. Like, make it logical. Family gatherings were their own special kind of torment. Our extended family quickly grasped the dynamic, probably because my parents made it so glaringly obvious. Aunt Linda, Mom's sister, once tried to compliment my art skills at Thanksgiving when I was 12. Before I could even say thanks, Mom interjected with, "Yes, she's creative. Katie, tell everyone about your solo in the winter concert." The message was unmistakable. My achievements weren't just secondary. They weren't even worth discussing. The computer became my sanctuary. I started devoting more and more time to learning how to code, because at least computers don't care about your appearance. They either function or they don't. No one tells a piece of code it should try contouring to make its interface appear thinner. By middle school, I had my routine down. Wake up early to avoid breakfast comments, spend lunch in the computer lab working on projects, really just avoiding the cafeteria drama, then retreat to my room until dinner. Katie would occasionally burst in, usually when she needed assistance with her math homework or wanted to practice her cheer routines. Those were actually our best moments. When our parents weren't around, she was almost kind to me. Almost. The real surprise? I wasn't. Even that unattractive. Looking back at old photographs, the ones where you can actually see me and I'm not artfully concealed behind a plant, I was just average. A little plump, certainly, but nothing that justified the level of criticism I received. But when you grow up hearing you're ugly every single day from the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally, that leaves a lasting mark. I recall one instance in 8th grade when I was invited to a classmate's birthday party, one of those makeover parties that were very popular in the early 2000s. Mom was so excited, as if finally someone was going to fix me. She even bought me new clothes for it. Then, at the party, the mom doing the makeovers looked at me and said, "Oh, honey, you have such pretty eyes. Why do you always hide behind those bangs?" And I just broke down crying, because in 13 years, none of my own family had ever found anything pretty about me. That's what people don't grasp about this kind of family dynamic. It's not just about being the less attractive sibling. It's about being treated as if you're worth less because of it, as if you need to compensate for the crime of not being conventionally attractive by being smarter, or nicer, or more successful. And even then, it's never enough. Okay, picking up where we left off, high school. Fair warning, this is where things get truly messed up. If you thought middle school was bad, prepare yourself. As I mentioned, my mom is an English teacher, and guess who had her for junior year English? This girl. And let me tell you, having your mom as your teacher when she's already disappointed in your existence is a particular kind of torment. She'd do this thing where she'd use me as an example in class, but not in a positive way. Like, "Now, if you structure your essay like my name, you'll never get into a good college." Thanks, Mom. Real professional. But the worst part about having her as a teacher wasn't even the classroom stuff. It was how she'd combine academic criticism with her usual appearance-based comments at home. "Honey, maybe if you spent less time slouching in the back row trying to hide, you'd participate more in class discussions." Or my personal favorite. "The other teachers mentioned you're always wearing that same oversized hoodie. No wonder Jason didn't ask you to homecoming." Side note, Jason was Katie's friend's brother, who Mom was convinced would be my only shot at dating. Spoiler alert, he took Katie's friend to homecoming instead. Katie was a senior when I was a sophomore, which meant I got to witness her embody every teen movie cliché in real time. Homecoming queen? Check. Dating the quarterback, Steve, who later becomes relevant to this story in the most karmic way? Check. Getting crowned at every single dance while I worked the coat check? Check, check. I wish I were fabricating this, but our high school truly was that stereotypical. The thing about being the unattractive sister in high school is that everyone feels entitled to comment on it. As if it wasn't enough that my family constantly reminded me, now I had helpful classmates pointing it out too. "Oh my God, are you really Katie's sister? But she's so..." And then they'd just trail off, as if not finishing the sentence made it less rude. I developed an entire system for surviving school. I always arrived early to class to secure a seat in the back corner, harder for people to stare at you. I ate lunch in the computer lab, telling teachers I was working on extra credit projects, really just playing around with HTML and CSS, but they didn't need to know that. I started wearing these massive noise-canceling headphones everywhere, the kind that screamed, "Don't talk to me," and spent every free period in the library. The computer lab became my sanctuary. Mr. Rodriguez, a shout-out to the real MVP, was the tech teacher who actually saw something in me beyond being Katie's peculiar sister. He's the one who first showed me how to genuinely code, not just tinker, with basic HTML. He started teaching me JavaScript after school, saying I had a natural logical aptitude. It was the first time anyone had ever praised my intellect, instead of criticizing my physique. But of course, my parents managed to spoil that too. Parent-teacher night arrived, and Mr. Rodriguez tried telling them about my coding projects and how I might have a future in technology. Mom's response? "Oh, that's nice, but shouldn't she focus more on subjects that might help her find a husband? Katie met Steve in AP biology, you know." The absolute nadir of high school hell was Katie's graduation. I'm sitting in the bleachers with my parents, watching Katie deliver her valedictorian speech, because, of course, she was valedictorian. She's up there talking about embracing what makes you unique and loving yourself. The same girl who once told me I should consider wearing a paper bag over my head for her Sweet 16 photos because I was ruining the aesthetic. After the ceremony, during the family photos where I was, as usual, strategically placed in the back, I overheard Mom talking to her friends. She was going on about how proud she was of Katie. Then someone asked about me. Her exact words, "Well, at least one of them turned out right. We're still hoping my name might grow into her features." Grow into my features? As if I were some kind of awkward puppy that might eventually look less strange. I was 16, pretty sure my features were done growing. That summer was when I completely disengaged from family life. I got a job at Computer Shack, one of those generic computer repair places at the mall, and picked up every shift I could. I started saving money in a secret account. Pro tip, never let toxic parents have access to your bank account. I learned how to build and repair computers, which was actually incredibly useful later. The worst part? My parents were thrilled that I was working retail. They thought it was me accepting my place in the world or whatever. Mom actually said, "It's good that you're learning a trade, honey. Not everyone can be as academically gifted as Katie." Meanwhile, I'm in the back room teaching myself Python and dreaming of the day I could escape. Senior year was purely survival mode. Katie was off at college, some fancy private school where she could pursue her dreams of being a trophy wife. Spoiler alert, mission accomplished, temporarily at least. So you'd think things would improve. Nope. Now it was all, Katie's doing so well in college, and Katie's joined a sorority, and Katie's dating a business major. I threw myself into coding, full-on obsession mode. I didn't attend a single school event, skipped prom despite Mom's hysteria about it being my last chance to feel like a princess, and spent every free moment either working or learning to code. Mr. Rodriguez helped me apply for scholarships behind my parents' backs because he knew they wouldn't assist with college applications unless it was for their approved list of schools, i.e., wherever Katie went. The day I got my full ride, scholarship to State for Computer Science, was the day I realized I might actually escape. My parents' reaction? "Oh, that's nice, honey. But are you sure you want to go there? Katie says the girls at State don't care about their appearance at all. You already struggle enough with that." Little did they know, their ugly daughter was about to level up in the most spectacular way. So we're at the part of the story where things start turning around, but not before one last serving of family toxicity, because of course, my high school graduation was exactly what you'd expect. While other parents were crying happy tears and taking millions of photos, mine were busy explaining to relatives why I chose State University instead of following Katie to her fancy private college. Well, you know how it is, some people just aren't cut out for more competitive environments. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Mom. The graduation party was even worse. Mom insisted on putting up photos from both her girls' special days. Basically a shrine to Katie's perfect graduation next to my... Well, let's just say she picked the worst photos of me possible, including one where I'm mid-sneeze. Who even keeps a photo like that? But here's where it gets good. Remember that secret bank account I mentioned? Working every possible shift at Computer Shack had paid off. I had enough saved up for a deposit on a tiny studio apartment near campus. The day after graduation, while my parents were at some country club brunch with Katie, who was home for the summer and just couldn't miss seeing her friends, I loaded up my ancient Honda Civic with everything that mattered. Fun fact, you can fit your whole life in a Honda Civic if you've spent 18 years being told not to take up too much space. The best part? They didn't even notice I was moving out until my aunt called them that evening, asking why there was a "finally escaped" post on my Facebook. Mom called in full panic mode, not because she was worried about me, but because, what? Will people think? It looks like we drove you away. Well, Karen, not her real name, but she might as well be one. Maybe you did drive me away. Just a thought. College was weird at first. Like, good weird, but still weird. Suddenly, I was in a place where nobody knew me as Katie's ugly sister. Nobody's mom was comparing me to their perfect daughter. I could just be me. Of course, my family had to try and ruin this too. Every holiday break was an exercise in psychological warfare. Mom would start with the subtle digs. "Oh, honey, the computer science stress must be getting to you. Your face is breaking out." Or, "Are you sure? You're eating enough vegetables? Your complexion looks tired." Dad's contribution was constantly asking if I'd met any nice business majors, because apparently coding was just a phase, and what I really needed was a husband to take care of me. This from the man who once told me I had a face for radio and a voice for silent movies. Katie would drop by during her breaks too, always with some backhanded compliment like, "You're so brave for not caring about your appearance anymore." Because apparently, wearing jeans and hoodies instead of dressing like a Stepford wife in training means you've let yourself go. But here's the thing about being away from toxic people. Their opinions start mattering less and less. Every time I went home, their comments had less power. Maybe it was because I was finally doing well at something. Maybe it was because I had friends who actually liked me for me. Or maybe it was because I was finally starting to realize that being ugly wasn't actually the worst thing a person could be. Being cruel definitely ranked higher. By junior year, I had a solid 4.0 GPA, a paid internship at a local tech company, and was leading 3 different coding projects for my department. My academic advisor was already talking about graduate school opportunities. Life was looking up. Then came the incident that changed everything. Remember how I mentioned I was good at building gaming PCs? Well, I'd started a little side hustle, building custom gaming rigs for other students. Nothing major, just word-of-mouth stuff. But one of my clients was this guy who ran a popular Twitch stream. He loved the PC I built him so much that he gave me a shout-out during one of his streams. Next thing I know, I'm getting orders from other streamers. I had to start a waiting list because I couldn't keep up with demand between classes. I was making decent money, too. Enough that I didn't have to work part-time anymore. My parents found out about this through Facebook. Note to self, really need to adjust those privacy settings. Their reaction? Pique them. Mom. Well, I suppose if you can't be pretty, at least you can be useful. Dad. Maybe you'll meet a nice boy who needs his computer fixed. Okay, so remember those gaming PCs I was building in college? That wasn't even the coolest part. The real story starts with my absolute obsession with game physics. Quick backstory. I'd always been fascinated by how things move in games. You know, like how water flows or how cloth moves in the wind, or how different materials break apart. Most people play games to escape reality, which, given my family situation, I totally get. But I was that weird kid pausing games to study how the physics engine handled different interactions. After graduation, I landed this entry-level job at a medium-sized software company. Nothing fancy, just basic back-end development stuff. The kind of job my parents called my little computer hobby whenever relatives asked what I was doing with my life. Meanwhile, Katie was living her best trophy wife life with Steve and their McMansion, so clearly she was the successful one. But here's where it gets interesting. During my off hours, I started working on this personal project. See, mobile games had this huge problem with their physics engines. They were either super resource-heavy and killed your battery, or they looked fake as hell. I thought I could find a middle ground. The first 6 months were rough, like living off ramen and energy drinks while coding until 3 in the morning. Rough. My tiny apartment looked like a scene from A Beautiful Mind, with whiteboards everywhere covered in physics equations and programming notes. I had this old iPad taped to my wall that just ran physics simulations 24/7. My neighbors probably thought I was losing it. Then came the breakthrough. I figured out this way to optimize physics calculations for mobile processors that nobody had tried before. Instead of doing full physics simulations, my engine could predict the most likely outcomes and only calculate those paths. It was like instead of calculating every possible way a ball could bounce, it figured out the most probable paths and focused on those. The best part? My engine used about 60% less processing power than the industry standard. Games could have console-quality physics without murdering your phone battery. I posted a demo video on Twitter just for fun. You know those tweets that blow up while you're sleeping? Yeah, that happened. I woke up to my phone having a literal meltdown from notifications. The demo had gone viral in the game development community. My direct messages were flooded with developers wanting to test it. I even received some emails from major gaming companies, which I initially thought were spam because, why would they contact me? But they were legitimate. Suddenly, I'm having Zoom calls with actual gaming industry people. They're throwing around terms like revolutionary approach and paradigm shift. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there in my ratty MIT hoodie, the only piece of college merchandise I own because it was on sale, trying to look professional while my cat is attacking my headphone cables. One company in particular, let's call them Game Corp, not their real name, was super interested. They flew me out to their headquarters for a meeting. First time flying business class, and I spent the whole flight panicking about whether I was sitting in my seat correctly. Peak imposter syndrome moment. The meeting was surreal. Picture this. I'm in this fancy conference room explaining my engine to a bunch of senior developers, and they're all taking notes, like these industry veterans with 20+ years of experience were writing down what I was saying. My brain kept screaming, "They're going to realize you're a fraud any minute now." But they didn't. Instead, they started talking numbers. Big numbers. The kind of numbers that made me wish I'd paid more attention in my business classes. They wanted to buy my engine outright. When they showed me the offer, I almost passed out. I had to ask them to repeat the number because I thought I was hallucinating. $2.8 million after taxes and fees and all that fun stuff. I'd like to say I played it cool, but I definitely cried right there in the conference room. Thankfully, they were super nice about it. One of the VPs even told me she cried when she got her first big break too. The negotiations took about 3 months. I had to get a lawyer and everything. Shout out to Maria, who explained contracts to me like I was 5 and prevented me from getting screwed over. I finally signed the papers on a rainy Tuesday morning in my lawyer's office. You know, that moment in movies where someone checks their bank account and has to sit down? That's a real thing. I literally had to sit on the floor of my apartment when I saw all those zeros in my account. My cat looked at me like I was having a stroke. First thing I did? Paid off my student loans. All of them. In one click. That feeling, better than any drug could ever be. Second thing? Bought a house. Nothing crazy expensive, just a nice 3-bedroom in a good neighborhood. The kind of house that says, I'm successful but not showing off about it. I even got a proper office for work with those fancy standing desks and everything. I didn't tell my family right away. Partly because I wanted to get all my financial ducks in a row first. Thanks, Maria, for recommending that financial advisor. And partly because I kind of wanted to enjoy my success without their commentary, for a while. But of course, news travels fast in the age of social media. Some gaming websites had written articles about the engine acquisition. One of my cousins, who's big into gaming, saw my name and shared it on Facebook. That's when all hell broke loose. It started with the calls, so many calls. First, it was just the usual weekly guilt trip from Mom. But suddenly she's calling every day, sometimes twice, and the transformation in her tone was Olympic-level mental gymnastics. The same woman who once told me I had a face only a mother could love, and even then it's a struggle, was now gushing about how she always knew I had potential. But the real kicker came when she started talking about this big family dinner she wanted to organize at the Cheesecake Factory. Because in her mind, that's the fanciest restaurant in existence. She even offered to make reservations herself. Which, if you knew my mom, was like offering to donate a kidney. This woman once made me pay for my own birthday dinner because you need to learn financial responsibility. I knew something was up, but my therapist, shout out to Dr. Lisa, had been encouraging me to set boundaries instead of just avoiding them, so I agreed to dinner. Big mistake. Huge. Walking into that restaurant was like entering the Twilight Zone. There's my mom wearing her special occasions blazer, the one that usually only comes out for parent-teacher conferences in church. Dad's actually wearing a tie, which I hadn't seen since Katie's wedding. And Katie, oh boy, Katie's there with her husband, Steve, looking like she's auditioning for Real Housewives of the Midwest. First red flag. They're nice to me. Like, aggressively nice. Mom compliments my hair, which literally hasn't changed since she called it a rat's nest at Christmas. Dad asks about my computer business like he suddenly understands what I do. Katie keeps touching my arm and calling me sis. She hasn't called me that since we were kids. Then the truth starts coming out. It turns out perfect Katie's life isn't so perfect anymore. Steve's startup failed spectacularly. Turns out selling blockchain-enabled smoothies wasn't the $1 million idea he thought it would be. They're 3 months behind on their McMansion mortgage. Katie had to sell,